Welcome to Season 4 of the Knack for Business podcast.
A quick sponsor mention. AdHive is where I go to build real business relationships in person and online. It's built for freelancers and growing teams who want more than just a LinkedIn connection. Find the link in the show notes or visit AdHive. Hey,
Or
question
come
of the
and
eye.
visit or come and visit them right on Courtwood Crescent.
Yeah,
They have a good little thing called the bistro there. Did you know that?
yeah, that's where my breakfast was this morning.
Okay. We know them.
Yeah, and it's really good food, and at Bistro and at Hive, so it's a good place to go. Free parking in the back, and details will be in the chat. Now,
Okay.
quick question to the audience: what does it take to build something that lasts 30 years and still be adding customers? That's not a hypothetical for today's guest. He's been connecting rural Ontario to the world since 1996, and the work is just getting started. Today, we mark a milestone, and we talk about what's next. Birket Foster has been building things for a long time. In the late 70s, he started connecting people and technology at Carleton University. By the time he was done, mbfoster.com had sold software to 48 American states and 38 countries, with Hewlett Packard among the partners. But it's what he's built next that most people in rural Ontario know him for. So, in 2003, Birket led the privatization of Storm Internet. By 2020, he completed the full acquisition. Today, Storm has over 150 smart farms on its network, 5 towers in the Perth area alone, and 48 kilometers of fiber running through Clayton. 30 years in, Storm has now launching a fiber-powered wireless across Lanark County, and Birket shows no signs of slowing down. When he's not running the company, you'll find him on the water chasing muskie or deep inside a science fiction novel. You can find out more at storm.ca. And you can also connect with Birket on LinkedIn, and Birket is spelled Birket, and then Foster is his last name. Birket, welcome back. It's a pleasure. It's really good to having you here again.
Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, well, and more stories to tell. Apparently, as we were chatting earlier. In the last podcast, we talked about Operation F1, rural barriers, books, ski fishing, 90-day ISP rescue operation, a whole bunch of things that came out of that. But what's happening in 30 years after the 30-year mark? Is Scoop.
Well, we are having a barbecue at the office, but we're also doing a public one where we're inviting people to join us at the Titans game. So the Titans is the local baseball team in Ottawa, and they set an attendance record this year at the opening game. It was 10,276 people in the stands. And we're proud to be a sponsor of the Titans. And the 20th of June is the date for that one. Titans are doing different things this year as well. They're actually adding some events that some people might find interesting. On the 8th of June, they're going to have a bark in the park. You can bring your dog to the park. Then on the 10th, in conjunction with Carleton University, they've organized a roundtable for business at 1 p.m. There'll be a business panel, which will have Michael Curran from the OBJ doing the moderating, and there's a number of people that will sit in and talk about a framework for business and growing businesses. So that'll be interesting. And then on the 20th, of course, it's a Saturday. We got the 6 p.m. game, and Storm will be there celebrating its 30th anniversary. So there's our connection with the Titan Stadium, which we did refurbish. Do you want to know about that refurbishing?
Yeah, well, yeah, because you know what? It's, what was there before, what's there now, and, what did Storm bring that they didn't have, and or what they're now going to get?
Once upon a time, long, long ago, it was Jetform Park. It's a property owned by the city of Ottawa. And what we have done is we've designed an upgrade for the internet into the park in conjunction with working with the Titans team. So we've done things that none of the public will ever see, like extra Wi-Fi in the locker rooms. Probably you don't have access otherwise. You've got the cameras. There's 5 HD cameras now that are all connected, and we've got them all appropriately wired up. So they're not on Wi-Fi. They're running wired because you need it for the bandwidth and reliability. That's content is being picked up by Sportsnet, I understand, so that you'll be able to see a game on not only local Rogers cable, but you can tell your brother-in-law down in Toronto that he can watch a real team play.
So is it just the ability then to broadcast the game? There's a bit more to it, isn't there? Is there
Yeah,
some admin support?
well, first of all, the management offices are at the stadium, and we've upgraded the Wi-Fi inside that area, and of course the ticket offices are wired properly now. And then we've done the concourses, which is where you buy your food and beverages, and also your merchandise, so you can get a nice Titans t-shirt for the or a cap or something. And we also did the seats, so you can actually connect to Wi-Fi in the seats. And when connecting to the Wi-Fi in the seats, you could take your picture and send your selfie up to Facebook, so your friends know what they're missing, you know, and your mom knows where you really were.
Or the missus, as the
Yeah,
case may be?
yeah.
How do you handle the volume? I mean, I've been in a management meeting in a old corporate well, let me rephrase that. I've been in no, let me rephrase it again. How do you handle the volume? I've been in a meeting before in my old corporate job where there were like several hundred managers and everybody's wired with a phone, right? And then as soon as
A
someone stops
smartwatch,
talking and someone stops
phone, tablet, yeah.
and everybody goes at that point in time, there's a break, there's an air gap. No one's presenting or speaking, and then everybody turns on their phone. How do you handle that deluge of feed me?
Well, the first thing is that you have to design the system. You gotta make sure the feed into the stadium in this case, or a building if it was a business, you gotta make sure the feed is beefy and can handle it. And that's the first thing. Then you gotta design the network so there's different access points and you know how many devices are actually gonna happen. So we learned a lot about this when we were doing Blues Fest. So we actually take the switches, and we actually for the Wi-Fi, and we actually put timers in them. Now, normally your timeout is something like, 20 minutes. So that's because 'cause you're probably at home and, and if you don't do anything for 20 minutes, you still wanna reconnect, without seamlessly. But in a stadium, people are on for, like, 30 seconds, and then they're gone for another hour. So what you need to do is you need to have a timeout that says, if this session doesn't come back in the next 2 minutes, they're gone. Because you have a limited number of sessions. Let's say you have 256 sessions for that access point, and that's the other thing, multiple access points means that you can spread it out across the stadium. Now, not everybody's gonna be on at the same time, probably, but what can happen is it can handle the traffic, and you can do strict things that just say, "Try again later," as a message if it gets overloaded. But the real thing is to configure it properly in the first place so that it doesn't get affected that way.
You ever find, and this is kind of off to the side, that anybody would try spoofing the system or, try to read someone else's device? Is that something that's part of the infrastructure, or is that what the person is responsible for their own device for protection?
People are responsible for their own devices, but we do have basic protection that's put into the devices we buy. They're commercial devices as opposed to the stuff you'd get at your local Best Buy store or something like that. This is a professional grade set of access points. Same ones we would use in a warehouse or in an office, to make sure that things are appropriately commissioned. I think that's the right word.
So the Titans is up and running. You have a 30-year anniversary that's up and running. What's happening with the 5 towers in Perth?
Well, actually, it's 8 towers now. There's the ninth tower, we're waiting on a partner to get us access to the tower and finish off the engineering specs for how we're gonna connect the new antennas. But, basically, we have put in infrastructure which today can support 2,800 simultaneous users, and we've started to install the users. We're at, over 230 users installed on this new technology. It's really changing the way people can do things. We know that the equipment we've got is capable of a gig wirelessly. Because of the way that residents use internet, they never really use more than 5 megabits per second. And, people go, "No, no, I use way more." Well, yeah, for a bursty moment, but we put capacity in to handle hundreds of people. Your bursty moment and the next guy's bursty moment probably don't happen at the same time. So, yeah, it's the way that we can do things to make sure that you get what you need. Even though 5.1 is probably what you need, you're not the only person on the network, and occasionally you'll be doing bursts of things where, like, you're uploading your video. And what we do is we actually provision you at a 100 down and 30 up, or 150 down and 30 up, or you can get 300 down and 50 up. So the up and down speeds are what we configure, and you don't need the gig. Honestly, people who are working from home will never use a gig. In fact, when people ask me about this, I say, okay, you can use a gig only if you are day trading or if you are actually doing some things with very large videos. You could actually use it, but only in bursts. And then the next piece is perhaps you have taken a number of rooms and turned them into an OnlyFans club, and you need 5 videos at the same time. Like, basically 50 up is good for 10 videos,
Yeah.
all running, HD videos. Like, what do you need? Even the best gamers don't need anything much more than this. So, it's just for people to think about. You really don't need it.
So if you're running a commercial application, a commercial process with a lot of bandwidth requirements, then you need that volume.
Yeah, and we'll configure it for you. But our normal selling is 300 down and 50 up, or 150 down and 30 up.
So what does the stadium run at?
Well, the stadium has a full 10 gig pipe.
Yeah. So,
Because they have a lot of functions, right? You have every one of those merchants, and they need instant response off their point of sale.
yeah.
You've got the cameras, so it needs what it needs.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. There's a large number of points that are drawing from the well. Bell, Rogers, and Kojiko, are they partners in crime? Are they partners in service? Is that something you work with, or you deliver the last mile? How does that work?
Yeah, basically, we have wholesale agreements with all 3 of them, so we're in co-opetition because they also will sell to our customers or our potential customers as well. So, and what we try to remind people is, Storm is in the community working, so we'll do like things at the Almont Fair to bring them internet and help them with their funding for the fair. You're not going to get that from the big guys. They're not coming to help you with your fair. So, and we live in the community. You look at, we have people from Perth and Almont, and we have people from Chesterville. We have people from Ottawa, people from Finch and Iroquois. So we're all over the area with, real employees that come from this area. So they actually know where Carleton Place is, as opposed to other places. And our normal support is like you got a 3-minute queue maybe. You're not waiting 2 hours with music on hold, or, some message that says, "Try online." No, we actually want to solve your problem. The first thing is, when we first configure things for you, we wanna get you the service you need, and then the second thing we need is, once it's in, if there is an issue, something goes bump in the night, we actually would prefer you didn't unplug and replug your radio. We like to look at the logs that are in the device. If you plug and unplug, we'll probably lose those logs. So then we can't tell what actually went wrong, but you may get back up and running. We'll never know what went wrong.
You mentioned this a little bit earlier. Fiber powered wireless. It sounds like hardwire, but not. So
Yeah,
kind of two
it
ends of the
kinda
spectrum. What's that?
It kinda is that. What we've done is we've been rolling out this new technology, and the way it actually works is it has the capability of, as we said, delivering a gig wirelessly. So that is what people consider to be fiber speeds, even though many of them get 50 down off of fiber. So it's just there in case I need it. I could upgrade, and you can. Um, and so it's fiber powered wireless because it's in the class of fiber in terms of speed. It's not just about the speed, though. It's about the fact that it also has very good characteristics for ping times and transfer rates and reliability. Turned out that when we were looking at another company, one of their users actually did a bunch of survey work, came back and told us a little bit about that base. We didn't want to know the names, but we wanted to know what was going on. And the answer was that 34% of them had a medical device. And so when you start thinking about it, you need absolutely rock solid stuff if we're going to have a medical device. And many of them require the internet on the back end to be able to pull the data down and hand it off to wherever it needs to be handed off to for a diagnosis. So it's important that people actually understand that we're putting out the most reliable wireless internet we possibly can in this particular project. And what we know that people do appreciate the fact that it's rock solid, because then when they're in their video call, it doesn't go and then come back.
So commercial monitoring is different than residential because obviously, like for example, the Titans, the baseball team, that's a 10 gig pipe that comes in there versus let's say someone's house. What do you monitor for? And are there different response times, or are there what they call SLAs agreements that kick in?
Service level agreements, or SLAs, we have different ones. Residential is 4 days because they're not paying anything extra for service. We're starting to offer a SOHO, which is small office, home office, where you could get a junior commercial enterprise grade and get something that's next day. And then of course for commercial, there's whatever you want, but basically starts with most people who are running a business. They don't wanna send 50 people home because there's no internet right now. So they want 4-hour response. And we monitor so we can do some things proactively. So for instance, we upgrade your routers and your network devices for you. So you don't have to remember to do that. We look at a patch, we check out all the details about it, we test it, and then we start rolling it out across people who own that kind of device, that are our customers that are paying for that service. So that's part of the way that we keep things current. And you need it to be current because there's a lot of security stuff that gets changed all the time these days, and there's also performance. So you can actually have a patch that will actually improve the performance of an existing radio, and we can send it out over the network and reboot your radio, and everything is now upgraded. So that's part of what we can do to help people stay current.
You ever thought of partnering with AdHive that if someone's home office is down for the count due to extended services, maybe they can come in and use the office rental space for an hour or 2 hours at off 1745 Courtwood?
We had that chat, yesterday. So I was there. I was there, and we were talking about, how could we collaborate on things, especially, when there's some kind of a disaster recovery that's required. We offer various different things that we can do. We include, the ability to bring a 110-foot tower to your backyard. It's slightly different because we have a portable tower, and that portable tower allows us to set up. So when we were helping with the LRT, there was an area that didn't have any towers anywhere near it that we could use. So we brought, for the contractor that was working on that section of the LRT, we brought in the portable tower and fed their trailers so that they could keep up to date on the as-built diagrams, do the time cards, and the monitoring for health and safety reasons. So we did all that for them over a tower that we popped up. Just, it's on wheels. We bring it over, we set it up, and the next thing you know, you have a 110-foot tower that we can probably connect to something at that kind of level. So those are the kinds of things you can get from us in an emergency situation. And in fact, one of our fellow ISPs was actually having us, their internet was actually on the side of a silo. And so what they had to do was, this farmer wanted to take down the silo and put up some new silo. And so they needed something to put the antennas that were on the top of that silo on. So we rolled in with the portable tower, and they were able to run for 2 weeks on that while the silo was being changed out, and that kept their customers alive and well, because there's no the reason they had that silo is because there's no tower nearby, you know? Lots of different things in case of emergencies.
I think that's fantastic. Even if it's not an emergency, but someone who needs a portable location, and I'm thinking, like, say, for the contractor doing LRT, they're going to be there for a while, but it's not permanent, and then everything's got to go away,
Yep,
right?
yep, it moves a kilometer down the track, and we adjust antennas, and then when it really gets too far away, we'll move the portable tower.
Excellent. Do you find that you end up looking for high ground locations also, like and I'm not in the city of Ottawa. Apparently, there's a lot of high ground locations. There's some really tall buildings,
Yep.
but let's say out in the countryside. Do you also look for high ground locations like where I'm living right now in the west end of Ottawa? If I'm looking from roughly the center out west, you can see the Canada Hill kind of rising up, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Are you looking for high ground where either there's a silo or a structure, a more permanent structure? Do you also look for that? And you as
Vertical
a
assets are really handy. There's in the countryside, there's a lot of water towers. There are also some silos, but there's a lot of water towers. So one of the things we do is we see if we can't rent space on the top of them so that we can aim our antennas in the right direction from there. And lots of people can see the top of that water tower. So lots of what we do is line of sight, although the new technology is doing near line of sight and non line of sight. There's still a big advantage to being able to do line of sight. So, for instance, the new technology will reach out 30 kilometers from that.
You find that the cell phone towers are also a good vantage point too?
They are, but the process to get on a cell phone tower these days is very difficult. It could be that we're in competition with the tower owner. And in fact, in the States, it's interesting because they have sold many of the towers because the whole area was blanketed with towers. There's no advantage to being the only tower in Canada because you're not the only tower. Your three competitors are there with their own towers as well. So why don't you do a collaboration, have one tower for all three of you with card cages at the bottom. When the signal comes in, it figures out which one of the card cages it should talk to, and then you've got your Bell Rogers or TELUS in our case connected to their own infrastructure. So that's the kind of thing they did in the U.S. And they sold the towers they weren't using off to REITs, so real estate investment trusts. So we have a lot of in the industry, a lot of towers are now owned by private equity funding, and they're, of course, handy um, for the use of things like fire, police, and ambulance, so they can have more towers that they could use. There's lots of reasons for why people want an antenna, and sometimes they take them down, but mostly in the States, they're looking to rent space on their tower to people that need it, including ISPs, which we're one of.
So if I'm out living out in the rural area and I've been there, and I know the fun of listening to a dial-up modem back in the day, screechy little thing that it is. What's the first thing a homeowner should ask an ISP? Yeah, what are the yeah, that's the one to go with, and that one not so much so.
Well, the first thing is that the homeowner should be thinking about how do we use the internet in our household. So we have developed what we call personas for various areas. In fact, for the 8 towers we're currently doing, we've actually developed personas by tower, looking at StatScan data and understanding some of our customers that are already there. We've come back and said, these are the personas. So as an example, working from home, you need up links for your video because the odds are you're going to be asked not just to join the conference call, but you'll need video. And of course, you're also going to probably use a package like Microsoft Office or Open Office, and it's going to be in the cloud. So you're going to have to push that spreadsheet. You're going to pull it down and then push it back up. So you'll need bandwidth to be able to do that. And how many people are doing this simultaneously? Another question, in a household, another question is how many TVs do you have? Did you connect them wired or wirelessly? Those are questions that help define the Wi-Fi that's needed. Because just because the pipe comes to the building doesn't mean that it's going into all the different rooms it needs to go to. So that's why planning Wi-Fi is important. How many devices do you have? Do you have an iPad? Do you have a smartwatch? Do you have smart lights in your house? Is your dishwasher a smart dishwasher? Or is your fridge Wi-Fi connected for some reason? What are all the things that are Wi-Fi connected in your household? And if you have a gamer, they need low ping time, so they have a very specific thing they're looking for to be able to play the game better, and usually it's first person shooter games for some reason, and they could lose their avatar life if it's too slow. So, and then they get pissed at mom and dad.
Yeah, that happens. Would you recommend if someone's setting up inside their house and if the opportunity avails itself to hardwire from the switch? I mean, in other words, your router, your modem comes into the house, you pipe into that, and then do you recommend people get a switch and hardwire as much as possible? Is there a boon in that other than a little more tighter security? You don't have leaky things, but even though I'll have, let's say, a device, if I speak its name, it'll respond to me now because it's always listening, right? And if I owned an Alexa, right, it would automatically respond. I don't own one, that's why I can say the name without a problem. And I also have a smartwatch, right? So, is it better to be hardwired in? Is there any saving grace in that, or is it just it doesn't matter whether you're hardwired or Wi-Fi'd?
Okay, so the thing about Wi-Fi is today there's basically two channels that people are mostly using. One is 2.4, which has been around for a very long time. There's 11 channels in 2.4, but there's only three that are non-overlapping. And you are competing on that channel, that frequency, against your entire neighborhood. So if, so it's not just the devices in your house, it's how close are you to the neighbor, and you might get interference because they have a device that's looking for a better connection than it currently has. So it keeps going, "Can I log in? Can I log in? Can I log in?" So that drives people crazy, which is why people actually learn about configuring and say, "These are the devices I'm allowing to connect to my Wi-Fi." There's actually a MAC address list that you can put into most Wi-Fi routers. So that's one thing. The second thing is, 5 is, if I 5G as people would call it. 5 gigahertz is the right place for a lot of work, but it doesn't penetrate walls as well as 2.4 does. So so you get your choice between its faster speed, but doesn't penetrate as well. So you gotta think about that. We also get into taking a look at your TV. So if you put your TV, which defaults probably to 2.4, on Wi-Fi, now what that's doing is it's taking a steady stream of images and putting them on your screen, but that's also interfering with everything else on 2.4 in your house and the neighbor's house. So that's one of the things that ought to be considered. So if you're doing a renovation, putting probably Cat 6, and because that'll get you faster speeds than Cat 5, but Cat 6, and probably or fiber. So figure out where the access points ought to be, and put them in the walls while you're doing your renovation, so that you can have your plugs in the locations you want them. So yeah, there's a few things in there that would make a big difference.
So if I'm a commercial operation, just understanding what we just talked about for residential, right? If I'm a commercial operation, these are really going to be significant issues to be mindful of then, right? How many devices
Yeah.
are coming in? Because obviously, if I have, let's say, a team of 5, 10 people in there, and they all have smartwatches, and they all have a cell phone that's tied into the Wi-Fi, plus
Yep.
then they have a work terminal or a station, or they have a portable device that they use, that feeds back into it. You come in and then build out the assessment going, okay, listen, this is what you can do. And this is, there's always several different ways you can approach a problem, but there's usually the most optimal one. It covers everything. Price point being part of it, but more, operationally functional and secure.
Well, I think that people could take a look at it at, um, things, but they probably don't have the skill set to do the Wi-Fi design. That's, I think, one of the things. So we have people on staff who know how to do the capacity planning for that Wi-Fi, and let's arbitrarily say there's 4 devices per person that you're expecting, and you've got, 20 people. Well, that's 80 people have to be able to connect simultaneously. If you're reading the fine print on some of the routers, the larger print says can connect 250, support 256 connections. But then you find out in the fine print that they can only handle 16 of them live at any given time. So all of a sudden you've just gone to your electronics store and bought something, but it's only really good for 16 simultaneously. So you have to actually figure out, and if you're in an office, everybody's supposed to be working, not just 16 of you, right? So that's the whole trick, is to actually understand how many people, what kind of devices, is there anything special? Are there devices we would hardwire because it's better in general for the whole topology? And as 6 gigahertz comes out, which is even shorter range but even higher speeds, as that comes out, there will be some more options for doing connections, and that needs to be thought about and planned, because it might not go very far. There is actually coming up, there is a spec that actually does something like 18 inches only, but it's for machine to machine in your manufacturing center, so that you don't have to pull pull the wiring cage around with you if you move the device on the manufacturing floor. Very high speed. It's
Very short range.
very short range. Well, it doesn't want interference because you don't want that lathe getting interfered with and deciding to change what it's doing with your piece of steel that's turning in the lathe. So that's the kind of thing. So as a business owner, people need to think about what are they doing and where are they going with this? And they should think out a few years. It's not about what you're doing today. It's about what you plan on doing with your building over the next couple of years. And in the moment you open a wall, think seriously about what should we be wiring to be able to meet the future demand. I think that's really important for people to think about. One last thing here, which is
Oh.
your question about if rural connectivity catches up with urban. What that'll do is it'll put people on an equal footing in the rural areas. More people will be able to work from where they are, and it should increase the economy significantly. Because then you actually can do things like there's a alpaca farm that's now selling sock kits, and they got a customer across from Shopify in Greece. So the fact is that before that, you had to come to one of the local county fairs to be able to get your sock kit. Now people can order it from across the world. Going global is one of the things that becomes an advantage of having internet everywhere.
You mentioned if you have different types of software running it's in a software as a service, so it's cloud based. Well, pushes and pull. What do you find has been the biggest consumer of always touching home, depending how you set things up, where it always reaches into the cloud? Is it just as I click on the file and it pulls it from the cloud, or is there some software that's always continuously pinging it, but it has a lot of bandwidth hungry?
Well, everything from Microsoft and Apple wants to update to the latest, especially these days because AI is a moving target and they're either eliminating bugs or adding features. So what's happening is it's doing downloads. And you don't really have a choice in many cases. It's going to do it in the next 3 days. And if a bunch of them decide to do it at the same time, all that bandwidth is gone and nobody's able to actually work on their desktop. Part of this is planning even those kinds of devices that would auto update. You actually want to consider how is that going to work? Are we going to help control that so it only happens after dark? Or like what are we doing to make that happen? So don't necessarily put on the switch that says do auto updates because it might be in the middle of this video that, oh, sorry.
That's happened to me once before, and my desktop decided, oh, we have a firmware update now, and everything went.
Yeah.
So, Birket, we can keep talking. It's so easy because you tell me some stuff and I'm going, hang on, that sounds even more interesting. But I just want to kind of highlight a few things. Birket has a couple of recommendations for books that are out there. Attraction by Gina Wickman, Good Read, Good to Great by Jim Collins, and Positioning by Rise and Trout. So those books are out there. And if you're in Lanark County and want to get on Storm's fiber-powered wireless network and still qualify for a free installation, head over to storm.ca/FPW and get your name in. And otherwise, head over to storm.ca. Check out the coverage map. See if you can get online and get access. And if you're a business, even more so, because it's kind of an important thing. And who connected us together? Well, actually, Birket and I met at Hive one day. He was grabbing a bite to eat at the at Bistro, and so was I. And next thing we had a chat, and then here we are today. Birket's been on the show 3 times already, and it's got great content for you, and he's got great leads. He's connected in the business space. He supports local community. Canadian. So what more can you ask for, right? And they have some wisdom in behind the scenes. Reach out to Birket and the team at Storm. They're worth the call. Storm.ca to get started. And to reach us, it's snackforbusiness.com. That's snack, N-A-C-K, the number 4, business.com to reach us. Is there a chat bot to find out about other episodes or book a call?
Everything you heard today is for educational purposes only. It's not professional advice. Before you act on anything, talk to a certified expert in your area. Your accountant, your lawyer, someone who knows your situation. We share perspectives. You make the decisions. Want more? Head over to blog.knack4business.com, packed with practical episodes on AI, marketing, leadership, and growth. No fluff, just the good stuff. Subscribe while you're there. Until next time, keep building.